What's up, YouTube? Devil here, bringing you a how-to video on base building. Now, I'm not going to be telling you how to build your base from start to finish, but what I will do is cover some tips, some things that you should be thinking about as you build your base. And these tips I'm going to bring you also help, I think, with analyzing the bases you're about to attack. So here we go. There's a few buildings that you want to pay a lot more attention to than others. They're going to be your clan castle, your archer queen, the giant bombs, and the air defense. The other buildings don't really matter as much. You want to put some thought into how you place those buildings, but really, it's the air defense, the giant bombs, and the CC, the archer queen. Those are really the core of your defense. The other things are kind of auxiliary. So the first thing I'll talk about is the clan castle. You want this thing to be dead center on the map. You don't want it to be off towards the edge. What happens when you place it off towards the edge is it's just too easy to lure the troops out. If the troops are lured easily, then why even have troops in there? Because it's just too simple to kill the CC when you can lure it that easily. The big difference, actually, when you have it in the center of the map, is that yes, there is poison. Anybody can drop a poison on a CC, but I gotta explain this. As you're attacking, the CC is gonna move, so you're hoping that the CC is gonna both do some damage and maybe get out of the poison. If the CC is easily lureable, then you have no hope of them getting out of the poison. Another thing we want to talk about is the Archer Queen. So this is a Town Hall 8, but let's just assume that's the queen right there. You don't want her too far out to the edge. You also don't really want her too much in the center. If she's dead center of the map, then what you're doing is enabling the attacker to attack your base from whatever direction they want. So when you're on defense, you know the attacker is going to bring a kill squad, and you know the kill squad's objective is going to be the Archer Queen. So if you put her in the center near the CC somewhere, you're really giving the attacker a lot of options. Now, if you put her offset a little bit, you're narrowing down the angle of attack that the attacker. You're narrowing down the options that the attackers have on your base. So with the Archer Queen off over here in this quadrant of the map, the kill squad almost certainly has to come from this section somewhere. Now, one thing you don't want to do is have the queen too far out. Now, if she's too far out, a good attacker could just place a king, maybe a giant with a couple wall breakers and a king. When the king sees, let's just say he gets dropped right here. The king, if he gets within so many tiles of the queen, he will ignore all the buildings and he will run to her. He'll even go through a wall to get to her. So you don't want that to happen. You want the king not to see your Archer Queen. So you want her to be tucked in a little bit so that the attacker has to put effort to get her. You don't want a tiny kill squad. Actually, I call it a ninja king is what I call it when I do it. That's when I just bring maybe a wall breaker or two and a giant. You don't want that to happen because that just frees up too much space in the army and it's just too easy. So you want her to be a little bit offset from the center, but not exposed to the point where the king can get her very easily. All right, so the next thing I'll talk about is going to be these giant bombs over here. Now, of course, the double giant bombs, they're going to kill the hogs instantly if the hogs path directly over them at the same time. Now, in this example right here, we have these 4 towers around the giant bombs. So let's say the attacker sends hogs this way. What's going to happen here, once this wizard tower goes down, is the hogs are going to fork and either go this way or this way. Now, it's incredibly likely at this point that the giant bombs are going to trigger one at a time. And when that happens, the attacker is going to put a heal down, and then the second giant bomb simply doesn't matter. Excuse me. So, in order to fix this situation, you got to move these towers a little bit further away. How far away you move them is kind of subjective and really entirely up to you, but the end result should be that when this wizard tower goes down, the entire group of hogs should go directly over the giant bombs to the other wizard tower. If they get distracted and peel off, then the giant bomb is getting negated. Another thing to consider is that these giant bombs, you don't want them too close to the edge. Basically, you don't want one tower between the edge of the base and your giant bombs. So if an attacker sends 3 hogs and takes out this wizard tower, and then the rest of the hogs come from somewhere else, the, the other hogs aren't going to path over this. So let's say that attacker sends the 3 hogs and takes this building out, and then they send the rest of their hogs this way, and this way, and this way. The hogs are going to go around that giant bomb. So you don't want that to happen. In order to negate that, you would simply have to put a couple defenses here. So now what we've done is forcing the attacker to use more than just a few hogs to get to the giant bomb. Now, this is just an example. You wouldn't use these troops in this configuration, or these buildings in this configuration. But, so effectively you've restricted the number of options the attacker has, because he's got to put more effort to get to this spot here. All right, another thing, if you're a Town Hall 8, is that third giant bomb. You might be wondering what to do with it. A lot of people, they'll just put it in kind of a random place with 2 little bombs next to it. What I recommend is to place it next to a splash damage. So in this example, what happens is the hogs take out the mortar, they'll path over the giant bomb, and then the wizard tower, hopefully, will take out the hogs if the attacker is a second late on the heal. If the attacker is on time with the heal, then this doesn't work. You kind of have to hope the attacker is a little bit slow with the heal, but if that's the case, then the attack's over. So that's my recommendation, but certainly not something you have to do. All right, so another thing we'll talk about, I didn't mention it in the opening of this video, is the springs. They kind of are an auxiliary part of the defense, but if they're placed well, they really can put a dent in the attacker's offense. So there's 2 different approaches you can take to placing the springs. The first thing is to put the springs directly between towers. So you would do it just like that. All right, so what's going to happen now is when the hogs go this way, they're going to fork off and go for the mortars, and they're going to go directly over these springs, and they're going to go flying. So it's very similar to how we treated the giant bombs. The other option is to place them dead center right in front of defenses on the perimeter of your base. Now, this is designed to target not suicide, but what's the word? I'm drawing a blank, I'm sorry. Surgical hogs, that's what it's called. So let's just say in this example, the queen is up here. So you know the kill squad's coming from this direction. If this is a go-ho, if the attacker decides to use surgical hogs, he's going to start the hogs probably over here somewhere. Maybe you don't know where exactly. But if they put 3 hogs here, 3 hogs here, you just sprung 6 hogs. And that puts a serious dent in the offense. It might not be enough to stop him, but it's certainly going to slow him down. Combine that with some well-placed giant bombs, and the attacker's going to have a hard time with using a go-ho. All right, another thing I want to talk about is the Teslas. Another thing I didn't mention in the opening, it is kind of auxiliary, but I feel like it's important enough to talk about. So this right here is what we call a Tesla farm. It's just when you put all of your Teslas in one spot, and because they fire so quickly, they pose a big threat to just about anything that comes near. I don't think you definitely don't have to have a Tesla farm, but it's worth thinking about at least. And if your base isn't holding up and you have a Tesla farm, you can go and split it up. It's just one of those kind of optional things, but maybe it works for your base layout, maybe it doesn't. All right, so another thing I want to talk about, of course, is the air defense. Now, I've sort of mentioned this before already, but you know that the attacker is going to come for your Archer Queen. Excuse me. The attacker is going to come for your Archer Queen, and you don't want to give them... You can give 1 air defense, but you definitely don't want to give 2. Because if you give 2 air defense very easily to the kill squad, then you're just asking to get a Golaloon. And it's once 2 air defense are down, it's pretty easy at that point. So one more thing I'll talk about is those bombs. You want to position them in a manner that the kill squad's not going to negate them. So if the kill squad is coming from this direction and they take this out, let's just say it is a Golomoon, the lavas aren't going to path over here just because that air defense is down. So you would be better off putting these air bombs on the other side of the base where the kill squad is definitely not going to be. And I think that's pretty much it. So when you're designing your base, consider the giant bomb positions. You don't want it to be too easily negated. You also don't want them to be too close to the queen. Consider the springs. You want them to be placed thoughtfully so that they specifically target hogs is usually what we're doing when we place the springs. The CC, put that dead center in your map. And the Archer Queen, don't let her be too accessible because that opens you up to too many different types of attacks. But you can put her dead center if you want, but that's usually not recommended. Put her off center a little bit. This way you force the attacker to do a certain angle of attack when they do attack you. That's really all you can do, especially at Town Hall 8, Town Hall 9. You're going to get 3-starred in war. The only thing you can do is try and absorb 1 or 2 hits. If you absorb an attack or 2, then you've done your job. So all you can really do is make it difficult to 3-star. And in order to make it difficult to 3-star, you just got to force the attacker to do something he might not want to do. And that's pretty much all you can do. So I hope you learned something, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Keep up the fire.